Heartland Summer. My name is Larry Law. I'm the Executive Director of the Great Lakes Independent Booksellers Association. I am joined today, as always, by Carrie Obrey, the Executive Director of the Midwest Independent Booksellers Association, and Kate Scott, the Programs Manager for MIBA. Like all of our events, this event today is recorded. Yesterday's education session demystifying the book supply chain was also recorded, and we had a very nice write-up in PW today, so I'm going to share that link in the chat after we get going. I want to thank you to our participating reps today. Thank you to John Hastie from Random House Adults, Jill Nadeau from Penguin Young Readers, Stefan Moorehead from Penguin Adults, Tim Mooney from Random House Children's Books, and Jason Gobble from Knopf Doubleday. Today's event will be run similar to our past Rep Picks events. Each rep will have 8 minutes. At 1 minute 2, I will notify the rep they have a minute left. Just very quickly, I want to talk about what the rest of our week looks like. We have an event this Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. Central, 8:30 p.m. Eastern with Ayad Akhtar. He is in conversation with Sarah Bagby. That is, it's a little bit of a strange time, 7:30 p.m. Central, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So please join us for that tomorrow night. And then on October 24th, we have a multi-regional event with Allie Broche in conversation with Jenny Lawson. That is Wednesday, October 14th, for her latest book, Solutions and Other Problems, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. You can find all the information for those events on heartlandfallforum.org. That being said, I'm going to start it off today with John Hastie. So John, whenever you are ready.
All right. Hi, everybody. I've got 8 minutes to talk about 8 books, none of which are the Obama memoir. I apologize in advance, but I'm going to start my time now. All right. So the first book, oh, I'm sorry. I meant to share my screen. I'm going to start my time in 5 seconds. Hold on. All right. There we go. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about is a bit of a departure. It's nonfiction from George Saunders. He teaches a course at Syracuse University called The 19th Century Russian Short Story in Translation. If that sounds a little bit dry, don't worry at all, because it's George Saunders we're talking about, and there's nothing dry about it. This is basically that course in a book. What he does is that he dissects short stories from the Russian masters. We're talking Gogol, we're talking Tolstoy, we're talking Chekhov, and he tells you how they work, what makes them tick, why they're good. And even if you have no aspiration to put pen to paper, it doesn't matter, because this is George Saunders we're talking about. So yes, there are insights about writing, but there are also insights about reading, and there are also insights about living and loving and feeling. It's George, right? So it's a perfect nonfiction book. Even though it's a departure, all of his fans are going to love it, no question. The next book is edited by Ibram X. Kendi and Keisha Blaine. What they've done is they've taken 80 different Black writers and assigned each of them a 5-year chunk of history to write about, starting with 1619, which of course was the year that the first kidnapped Africans were brought to North America. So it's they call it a chorus of Black voices, and there are journalists, there are academics, there are poets, each of whom tackles a different 5-year period, as I said, and they all bring their own perspective and their own expertise to what they choose to write about that happens in those 5 years. So it's a really wonderful kind of quilt patchwork history of North America. Very, very important book. And of course, Dr. Kendi wrote an amazing foreword that kind of puts the whole thing in perspective. The Smash Up, this is a wonderful novel. And it's the kind of thing that I think booksellers can really get behind. It's that mid-list gem that I think we can all get really excited about. On its face, it's a book about a family from Brooklyn, a family of professionals from Brooklyn who after 9/11 decide that they're going to relocate to a small town in New England. As you read it, though, you start to realize, wait a minute, this is actually a modern day retelling of Ethan Frome. And what's even more than that is that in Ali Benjamin's hands, the framework of Ethan Frome ends up being a perfect way to take a broader look at our political and cultural moment. Because in the background of the problems that this family is having, you have the Brett Kavanaugh confirmations happening, you have the Me Too movement happening, you have the Trump administration happening, all of these things kind of causing an ennui and a rage in some of the characters, which kind of informs the story. I think it's great for readers of Sally Rooney. I think it's great for readers of Fleischman is in Trouble. I really think this could be our breakout kind of mid-list novel for the year. Claire Saffitz, she is the face of Bon Appetit's YouTube channel, which, believe it or not, gives her an absolutely huge profile. She's bigger than Oda Lengi in the food space. She's right up there with Ina Garten these days. And her first videos were her like kind of deconstructing, let's say, a Twinkie for the home kitchen. And they were fun and they were charming, but she didn't really like doing them. And it wasn't until she convinced her editor that she should be doing her own stuff that her popularity really just exploded. There's a picture over there. You might recognize her. She is funny, she's charming, she's best friendy, and this is her first book ever, so it's a bit of a big deal. And as you can tell, she's a really great kind of visual teacher. So the book has these wonderful step-by-step kind of montages throughout. Hanif Abdurraqib, boy oh boy, he's one of my favorite writers of all time right now. He's written a couple books. This is our first book with him, and this is actually a bigger book than some of the ones he's done before. This is a cultural, personal, and kind of historical look at Black performance in America. Whether he's talking about Josephine Baker or Whitney Houston or watching Soul Train as a kid or his own failed attempts to impress women with his own dancing, or he's talking about Sun Ra, Orlando Calrissian, or Octavia Butler. He has this amazing way of going from very kind of matter of fact writing, slipping with jaw-dropping ease into just poetry that that just flows and flows and flows, and then bringing it back again as he brings his point to a conclusion. It's brilliant, brilliant writing, perfect for the subject matter he's working on here. I am very, very excited about this book. Oh, Madhouse at the End of the Earth. This is perfect narrative history. It's the story of a troubled Antarctic expedition. In fact, it's one of the first Antarctic expeditions. And it was undertaken by this guy who wanted to claim glory for Belgium. His name was Adrien de Gerlache. The problem is that the talent pool in Belgium, when it comes to adventurers and scientists and sailors, was pretty small. So he had to assemble an international crew. Which sounds like a great idea until you get everybody on the same boat and they all hate each other, right? So that's just the beginning of this thing. Things get pretty bad for them when they do finally get down to the ice. I don't want to give away too much, but I will say that this is perfect for readers of endurance. It's perfect for readers of, I would say, Eric Larson as well. And it has some really fun Easter eggs. One of the members of this crew, for example, is Roald Amundsen, who of course went on in subsequent expeditions to be a much more famous polar explorer and much more successful polar explorer. It's really fun, great edge of your seat stuff, and it's written with a little bit of a sense of absurdity, which I really appreciated. Oh, Bestiary, this is by far my favorite novel of 2020. This is it's a story about 3 generations of Taiwanese American women. They're known simply as daughter, mother, and grandmother in the story. And this book is written with it's written in the style of like a fever dream prose poem that involves mythology and involves magical realism. And if that sounds completely pretentious, I totally understand, but believe me, this book is so beautiful. I had to stop on several occasions to catch my breath. Just some of the most exciting writing I've come across in a long time. But even though the writing is beautiful, it's not always pretty. There's a fair amount of violence in this book. There's a fair amount of trauma. There are a lot of bodily fluids in this book. So it's not necessarily for everyone, but I will say that the National Book Foundation did, just based on this debut, award her the best 5 under 35. So it's a really, really important debut, and I just can't say enough good things about it.
John, you have 1 minute.
Well, that's perfect. I've got one book. I'm right on schedule. Thomas Maltman, very important author to all you Minnesotans especially. His last book, Little Wolves, was an Indie Next pick. This is a perfect Midwestern noir. It takes place, it's a young man, his name is Lucian Swenson. I mentioned that it was Minnesotan. And he is house sitting in the winter in rural Minnesota. He decides he's gonna use this time to try and investigate what might have happened to an ex-crush of his who has disappeared. This brings him in super uncomfortable proximity to a white supremacist death cult living off the grid in the woods. On top of that, there's a mysterious woman who's basically squatting in the house he's supposed to be house sitting at. So all of the elements are there for a great Midwestern noir. It's a fantastic read. I couldn't put it down. And I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John. That was impressive. That was exactly 8 minutes. I think that's the only time that's ever happened. A couple of things I wanted to mention really quickly. If you do have a question, throw it into the chat, and we'll make sure we get to that after each presentation. Also, carry through that in the chat. Also, Hanif will be presenting the Voice of the Heartland Award to $2 Radio at our celebration on October 15th. So please join us for that. Also, I'm going to be, when each rep starts presenting, I'm going to include their contact information and their Edelweiss collection in the chat. So look out for that. All right, next up, we have Jill Nadeau.
Hi, everyone. We're going to switch directions for a few minutes and talk about children's books. I have 4 wonderful picture books to kick us off. The first of which is What We'll Build by Oliver Jeffers, on sale 10/6. And this is a companion to the #1 New York Times bestselling book, Here We Are, which Oliver wrote after the birth of his son. And then he had a daughter, so he wanted to write a children's book in tribute to his daughter. And this has an absolutely wonderful message. It's about the power of building good things throughout the world and all who will benefit from that. And we are including this in the Heartland catalog. Next up is I Am Every Good Thing. This is by Derek Barnes and Gordon James, and you probably remember them as the collaborators on the book Crown, which won both a Newbery Honor and a Caldecott Honor. The confident Black narrator of this book is so proud of everything that makes him who he is. It's upbeat, it's empowering, it celebrates Black boys. The illustrations are absolutely joyful, and they burst with so much energy and confidence. It's just an awesome book. So far, it's received 6-star reviews. It's #5 on the indie bestseller list, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this gets some wonderful buzz for Caldecott. It truly is such a wonderful book. Keep an eye on your stock. I had a lot of stores sell out of this right away, and we do still have signed books available for your customers. So if you would like to order more, let me or your sales rep know, and we'll get you some. And I'm not sure if I said it, but this too is in the Heartland catalog. Wreck This Picture book is on sale November 3rd, and it is so fun and interactive. Probably the best way to set it up for you, if you will indulge me, is just to read a short paragraph. Did you know that a book is not able to be itself without you? You help to make it into something. You bring your experiences, your ideas, and your imagination. A book can be different every time you read it because you can be different. So what this book does is it really encourages a child to awaken their senses, to touch the book, to play with it, to look with it, listen, smell, even taste the book. It tells you to take the book on an adventure or wear it or have a party. So as you can see, it's just really interactive and fun. And there's some I Spy elements to it too, so you can actually search for things throughout the book. And I'll mention the author, Carrie Smith. You'll probably know her name because she is the author of the 10 million copy bestseller, Wreck This Journal. And so she's an expert when it comes to getting people to get their creative juices flowing. And I have no doubt that kids will bring their own imagination to this wonderful book. So earlier this year at Sales Conference in February, our sales force had the incredible opportunity to meet Misty Copeland. And you'll know that she is the first African-American female principal dancer with the American Ballet. She came to our sales conference and she told us about this wonderful new series of picture books she's doing. The first of which is Bunheads. And it tells the story of Misty, a young girl on her first day of ballet class. And her teacher tells her the story of Coppelia, and she and her friend Kat pour their heart into trying out for and performing the lead roles in the story. The book is gorgeously illustrated. The palette is just, I absolutely adore it. And it's by an illustrator from Ghana whose name is Sedor Fiagzebe. And I just think the combination of Misty and Sedor on this book is incredible. We'll have some national media when this comes out on 9/29, which is next week, to include The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, NBC News, CBS Sports, so all kinds of fun things. On to middle grade, we have two wonderful novels in verse, the first of which is by Jackie Woodson. It tells the story of a boy named CJ and his dad, who was a professional football player. His dad suffers from CTE. He's angry, he doesn't remember names, he can't remember stories from his glory days as a football player. And CJ really struggles with his dad's illness. He's angry about it, he's sad, he's confused, and Jackie just does such an amazing job of making it feel so real and relatable. So far, it's received 6-starred reviews, and it's number 7 on this week's indie bestseller list. We are so excited to welcome Ellen Hopkins to the Penguin Young Readers list. This is her first middle grade novel in verse, and it tells the story of a blended family about a girl named Hannah and her husband Cal, who comes to live with them after the death of his mother. Cal struggles. He's having a hard time. He's trying to fit in, but he can't help himself. He wants to prank Hannah. He is a storyteller, but his stories are half-truths, and it gets him into trouble. And Hannah really struggles with, knowing that he's having a hard time, but then also, sometimes she wishes he hadn't moved in. It's told in alternating perspectives, and it's a real intimate look into a family struggling under very difficult circumstances. As you know, Ellen Hopkins pours herself into her books. This is probably one of her most personal stories, in that she took in her grandson when her daughter was struggling with problems of addiction, and he suffered from PTSD. So not only has she incorporated his story, but her own in caring for him into this story. And it's pretty poignant. It comes out on October 6th. Then we have young adult, and at long last, we have the conclusion to the Ember series. We don't have anything to read yet on this, but plan on it having all of this heartbreaking and heart-aching romance, a ton of action and adventure, huge consequences for the characters that you've known and loved. And because this is coming out December 1st, it's going to make a great gift for the holidays. We are offering signed editions of this, and we know that there's a whole new readership for this series, so we have priced the first book, Ember, at $5.99, and the third book is out in paperback. And then last for new books in young adult is We Are Okay. And I adore Nina LaCour. She is the winner of the Prince Award for We Are Okay. Her writing is incredible. This debuted last week, and it's already number 7 on the indie list. And it tells the story of 18-year-old Mila, who has just exited the foster care system. She goes to work for a home and school for other children who don't have parents or people to care for them. And there's also woven into this an incredible ghost story, and Mila has to face all of the trauma that she's had in her past. So a really, really incredible story. And last but not least, I'll just give a shout out to our titles that are on the long list for the National Book Award, Lifting as We Climb, which is Black women's suffrage, When Stars Are Scattered, which is an amazing graphic novel about growing up in a refugee camp in Somalia, and Everybody Looking, which is a coming-of-age novel in verse about a Black woman with a Nigerian father and an African-American mother who has addiction issues. So we'll cheer for them and hope they make the shortlist on October 6th. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jill. We did have a comment in the chat from Alana Haley from Schuler Books and Nicola Books in Michigan. Just reviewed Wreck the Picture book yesterday, so fun.
Oh, good, thank you.
Great. Next up, we have Stefan Moorehead from Penguin Adult.
All right, let me get my screen shared here. All okay? Thumbs up? Perfect. All right, here I go. Hi, everybody. I'm Stefan from Penguin Adult from Penguin Random House. I want to start off with How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy. Wilco band leader. He's a best-selling author, too. You'll remember from his memoir, and a Chicagoan. He returns with a book, Perfect for Giving. And it explores the notion that having a daily creative habit or routine is a wonderful way to live life. Even if you're not a professional songwriter. He walks us through his own creative process in constructing just one song in the book, and why it's important to have an outlet where you can express yourself, even if you're only doing it for yourself. It's perfect gift for both the Wilco fan and the creative person in your life. Next is Oh She Glows for Dinner. It's the return of the inspiring Oh She Glows and Angela Liddon. These are really nourishing, flavorful, crowd-pleasing, plant-based meals with an eye towards a fulfilling dinner. So I've posted a couple of the spreads, recipe spreads that just look so stupid good. And if we had a booth this year, I'd be for sure passing out those no-bake jammy oat crumble squares because they look great. So take a look at the finished book when it comes in soon, and it'll make the perfect gift, or it deserves a permanent spot on your cookbook shelf. Next, I have Memorial by Brian Washington. From one of President Obama's favorite writers of 2019, after his short story collection Lot, we have his debut novel Memorial. Washington described this as his gay slacker dramedy, and that's just felt so apt that I keep using it. The novel's about Vincent and Mike, who are floating along in their relationship until Mike proposes something that might end their cohabitation as they know it. Mike then leaves for Japan to visit his dying father, while Benson entertains Mike's mother in the United States. But of course, Washington is really delving at so much more than just that. I'm going to quote Daniel Golden from Boswell when he wrote, "The story moves from Benson to Mike and back again as each navigates the push-pull of family, responsibility, and commitment. Memorial is a sex-positive, HIV-positive, sort of comedy love story with a magnetic emotional resonance that exerts its pull just when you least expect it." And I'll add to that, this is perfect for readers of There, Ocean Vuong, and Goodbye Vitamin. Switching gears a little bit to some nonfiction is We Gather Together by Denise Kiernan. You know her as the author of Girls of Atomic City and The Last Castle. This is the true story of a larger-than-life woman, Sarah Hale, and her 36-year-long quest in the fracturing run-up and in the molders of the Civil War to create a National Day of Thanks to help unite the country. This book shines talking about Sarah Hale, as she just is an absolutely fascinating woman who had what we would call today a lifestyle brand, although that wasn't something they thought about in the 1860s. And she really drives the narrative of this book. So Kiernan helps us more fully understand sort of both the history of the time and this idea of gratitude that Sarah Hale had. And not just as a way to unify the states of America at a time when the Union felt impossible to stitch back together, but as a way to think about life even in the toughest times. So it's perfect for whatever our holidays will look like this year. And then speaking of working through life even in the toughest times, I have Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May. So winter is something we're all too familiar with out here in the Midwest, but this book is so much more than our slushy roads or waking up at 6 a.m. to shovel the sidewalk in front of your store. It's an intimate, revelatory book exploring the ways we can care for and repair ourselves when life knocks us down, that it's okay to recede within ourselves. So this book shows that nature has always done this, and that even under all the ice and snow of winter, things thrive, and we can do that too. So this was a beautiful book, mixing a little bit of H's for Hawk, the bit of Wendell-Berry, with a little bit of Rebecca Solnit. So I did feel restored after reading it. So moving into my first book of 2021, The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This is a debut novel I loved so much. I have read it twice so far. It's edited by Sally Kim, who publishes first-time authors like Kylie Reed, you'll know. The Prophets is a searing look at the Black lives on a Mississippi slave plantation. The novel's about Isaac and Samuel, who are lovers. It's about them sneaking tender and playful moments when no one is watching them. And it's about their love. But it's also so much more than that. The novel's about the stories of the enslaved as the women and men try to make their lives something, who are corrupted or consoled by the word of God. This is all the story of the slavers, and ultimately a betrayal that sets to undermine everyone's world on the plantation. So this is for readers of Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, Homegoing, Washington Black. And I say this honestly, but I mean, you could see Edmund White agrees with me. His writing style touches on the lyricism of James Baldwin and Toni Morrison. This novel was breathtaking. I, or whoever your Penguin rep might be out in the world, would love to know what you think of this magnificent, earth-shattering novel. Next, I have Professional Troublemaker from Chicagoan Lovey Ajayi Jones. She's the author of I'm Judging You, which you may remember from a couple of years ago. This is a hilarious and powerful book that talks about how to tackle fear and live boldly and audaciously in spite of all the reasons we have to hide right now. Her message is not about being fearless, which I know some books posit, but sort of working through your fear of the unknown. And this includes sort of relatable, funny, inspiring stories from her life, and includes specific action plans for you. So Lovey is endorsed by everyone from Glennon Doyle, like you can see there, to Oprah. So really, I think it can't miss for 2021.
Stefan, you have 1 minute left.
Okay, great. So my last book too. Yay, I'm just like John. So Gold Diggers by Sanjana Sathian, from an Iowa Writers Workshop grad, a brilliant, funny, Indian-American, magical realist, coming-of-age novel that spans 2 continents, 2 coasts, and 4 epics. The book asks this question, like, what must someone do to achieve the American dream these days? So it follows Neil, who's funny, he's smart, but he's a slacker, and Neil's neighborhood obsession and neighbor, Anita, who's striving for greatness. But Anita has a secret that her mother brought to America from India. It's harnessing the power of stolen gold. It's a secret that soon upends this quiet Atlanta cul-de-sac that they live on. So fast forward to 10 years later, Neil reunites with Anita in California and resurrects their old habit of gold stealing. Only now, of course, you might suspect, the stakes are much higher. This novel does nothing less, I feel, than illuminate that glittering mirage that can be the American dream for some. So this is going to be perfect for your readers of Crazy Rich Asians, Little Fires Everywhere, and Americana. And that does it for me. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Stefan. We had some love coming through the chat. Carrie Kopke said love Memorial. Sarah Bagby, I think she was talking about wintering. So this is the book I didn't know I needed. So good.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Brian Wilson, love wintering. So nicely written. Just amazing. Carrie Aubrey adding so many books to my shopping and gift list. And then Pamela Klingerhorn, loved wintering too. So great, lots of love for wintering. Next up, we have Tim Mooney from Penguin House Children's Books. Oh, can't hear you yet, Tim.
I think Tim's audio connection through his phone is still muted.
Oh, is it? Okay, let's see. Can we, Kate, are you able to unmute it?
I can ask him to unmute. Unfortunately,
Oh, his
as far
actual
as I
phone,
can
you
go.
mean? Let's see. Let me shoot him a message. Let's see, I just sent him a message. Let's see. All right, Tim, can you hear me?
Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop his sharing for a minute. I wonder if he just can't see the chat.
Okay. Maybe we come back to Tim then and we'll. Tim, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. Yep, I can hear you now.
I can hear you. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let me share my screen.
You're kind of echoing right now. Kate, can you see if both his video and mic telephone are producing audio right now?
Actually, just his computer is doing the audio right now.
Just the computer, okay.
The phone is still muted.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a slight echo.
Oh. You think it's my phone?
Yeah, it's probably the phone. Let's see.
Tim, I think your audio is coming through your computer at this point. What if I just removed your phone?
Okay.
I'm going to try it, and if you disappear, come back in.
You have been put on hold by the host. You cannot listen or talk until the host releases the hold.
All right, give it a try now, Tim. See if we can hear you.
Are you there, Tim? Can you hear us?
All right, Tim's coming back in with his phone. That must have been something.
Yourself by pressing *6.
Maybe move on to Jason.
Yeah, Tim, we're gonna jump to Jason and then
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. Then we'll come back to you, Tim.
Okay.
All right.
Is he going to unshare his screen?
Yep. Next up, we have Jason Gobble from Knopf, Doubleday. So let me. There we go.
All right, we good to go? Can you hear me?
Looks good.
All right. Okay, so the key to doing 8 books in 8 minutes is to pick at least a couple that require basically no explanation. So we're going to start with one of those. It's Julia Child's People Who Love to Eat Are Always the Best People. This is a little collection of quotes that Julia Child gave over her life on everything from food to love to whatever. It's a little 1895 illustrated hardcover. It's coming out the middle of November. It'll be the perfect gift for the foodie in your life, or for sort of a safe mom grandma gift, or a perfect hostess gift, even though probably no one's hosting anything this year. The next book is Fortune Favors the Dead. This is a debut mystery by Stephen Spotswood. Comes out in late October. I'll admit I'm not a big mystery reader, but I found this completely satisfying. It's set in 1940s New York City. It's the story of 2 detectives, Lillian Pentecost, who is sort of a celebrated lady detective, and Willa Jean Parker, who goes by Will, and she's her sort of tough young assistant. She was a runaway. She worked for the circus for a while. They're kind of a sort of a Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, but they're really much more kind of a Miss Marple and Raymond Chandler, because it has a real sort of rat-a-tat 1940s feel. So while it does feel kind of retro, what I like so much about it is it deals with issues like aging and disease and sexuality that like genre novels of that type rarely ever dealt with. So it has a nice modern sensibility, but still feels kind of its time. It's also the beginning of a series. We've signed up book 2 already. So I think people who love sort of Alan Bradley's Flavia de Luce series, or especially Amy Stewart's Cop Sisters, Girl Waits with Gun, and those kind of books, I think they're going to love this. Next, The Bad Muslim Discount. This was originally my 3rd book because it was coming out in November, but last week we moved it to early February. So we're now actually into 2021 already. But it's going to be worth the wait. This book, it's a debut. It's his adult debut. He actually published a YA novel called More Than Just a Pretty Face with Little Brown last month. But this is his adult debut. He himself grew up in the Middle East. He now lives in California. And this is the story of 2 Muslim families, one from Iraq and one from Pakistan, who in the 1990s moved to California, and it follows them through 2016. And what I love about this book is it deals with real issues. It deals with, immigration and the Muslim treatment of women and a lot of like really dark things, but it's in no way a heavy novel. It's surprisingly light. It's funny. He doesn't sugarcoat things, so it's not like facile or anything, but there's just a heart to it that I found really uplifting. And I think it's the kind of book that if you can convince people to give it a try, they're going to love it, because it's kind of like the book we need right now. Next. So we're officially in 2021 now, because this is starting our spring list. And I know reps say this kind of thing all the time, but this is our spring list next year is ridiculously good. Starting with Kazuo Ishiguro's Clara and the Sun. This is his first novel since winning the Nobel Prize in 2017. I'm not going to really try to get into the plot too much, because if you know his work, you know plots. Kind of like Murakami, when you explain the plot, it's like makes people want to read it even less. But it really is, it reminded me a lot of both Never Let Me Go and Remains of the Day in certain ways, but it still feels completely fresh. It's going to be a really big deal next year, and it completely delivers. My Time Will Come, if you don't count the Julia Child, this is the only nonfiction book I'm talking about. And the subtitle, A Memoir of Crime, Punishment, Hope, and Redemption, I think gives you a really good idea of what it's about. Ian Emanuel grew up in a really rough part of Tampa, Florida. And when he was 11 years old, he started stealing cars with his friends. When he was 13, he took part in a failed mugging that he sort of accidentally shot a woman in the jaw. She lived, but he, despite the fact that she lived, he ended up getting sentenced to life in prison without parole at age 14. And the point is made in this book, I think very importantly, that the United States is literally the only country in the world that a 14-year-old can get life in prison without parole, which I think says a lot. So he ends up spending 26 years in prison, 18 of which were almost solely in solitary confinement. So it's really unimaginable. But through a couple of really lucky breaks, including the participation of Brian Stevenson, who wrote Just Mercy, and I think most amazingly, the forgiveness of the woman that he shot who came to support his release, he actually did end up getting released in 2016, and he now is a motivational speaker. So I mean, this book, it's harrowing, but it's timely and it's important, and we're really proud to be publishing it. The last 3 that I'm doing, and I'm going to blow this 8-minute thing out of the water, is that they are all novels, and they all take place in the Miba territory, which is super exciting. Even better, because as a rep, the worst thing that can happen is when you get a local novel that you don't like, but these are all exceptionally good, so I can recommend them all unreservedly. And I'm going to go from east to west, because why not? So the first one is Early Morning Riser. This is Katherine Heine. It takes place in Boyne City, Michigan. If you don't know Michigan geography, Boyne City is up sort of between Traverse City and Petoskey. It is, as I say here in my little thing, it's about a lovable woman and a well-loved man. And what I mean by that is Jane is a school teacher, and she's just like, the kind of teacher you wished you had. She's everybody's friend. Duncan, who is her boyfriend, is sort of the town Lothario. I mean, he's basically slept with every woman, not only in town, but also kind of in the Tri-County region. And it's what it's like to try to form a relationship when everybody in town knows you, knows your past, and has an opinion about what you're doing. So it's the third book by Heine that we published, but I really think this is going to be her breakout. This is for the Emma Straub crowd. This is for the Maria Semple crowd. But coming more local, it's also for people who loved J. Ryan Stradel, Lorna Landvik. It's smart, it's funny, it's Midwestern, it's a little bit acerbic, and it's a real treat. Now we're moving west across Lake Michigan, and that brings us to Milwaukee and Lauren Fox's Send For Me. This is her fourth novel we published, and while I like the first three very much, I think this one is just a huge step forward. This is a dual timeline novel. It takes place both in Germany, right as the Nazis are coming to power, and in modern day Milwaukee. And it covers 3 generations of the same family, mainly the women in that family. And it's just, the writing is so rich and so assured, and the storytelling is so complex and so compelling. And it's got a really interesting structure. And what I love so much about it too is it's that rare book that I think literally works just as well for the literary reader and the commercial reader. So people who love All the Light We Cannot See will find something to like here. And the people who love Lilac Girls, I mean, they're both going to be completely satisfied. So if you like World War II fiction, or if you like contemporary relationship novels, both of these, this book works for you.
Jason, you have 1 minute.
Cool, and my last book. So Brood. Brood is, as I say here, it's a debut novel about trying to keep some chickens alive, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's actually pretty amazing. Jackie Polson lives in St. Paul. The novel is set in Minneapolis, and ultimately it's about loss and grief. It's about the ache for something deeper. It's about sort of that malaise that sort of kicks in around middle age when you're not sure if life's turning out the way you hoped it would. It's about trying to live life. And I think it's a little book. You can read it in an afternoon, but most books like this are somebody looking back on their life. And this is for somebody who's like right in the middle of it and just trying to do the best they can. And I realize that everything I just said makes it sound really depressing and heavy. And in a way it is at times, but it's also, it's clear-eyed and it's wise and it's darkly funny. And it's probably not for everybody, but I really loved it. And I hope you'll all give it a shot. So I think it's a really special book. So that's my list, and thanks for listening, and don't forget to vote.
Hey, thank you, Jason. All right, Tim, let's give that another try. Got a couple things we can try if we can't get your audio working. Can you hear us, Tim? All right, we can't hear you. Let me unmute your phone. Let's see if that helps. Oh, it looks like you're, let's see. Can you hear me, Tim? Let's try this.
Hear me?
Yep, there's a little bit of echo, so I think we're just gonna might have to deal with it for this.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Really sorry, Jason, for going all. Let me. I'm gonna pull up. Can you see my screen?
It was up for a second. We just saw a black screen though.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, buddy. Technology. This scene, you all. I'm getting an echo, right?
Yes.
See if I can turn the. Can you still an echo?
It's quieter.
Okay. Missing you all in person. Sorry about this. So I'm just going to quickly go through my list. I've got a bunch of picture books, graphic novel, middle grade, YA. Is this working with the audio? Because I hear echo.
It's good enough.
Okay. So Wild Symphony by Dan Brown. This book is already out in the marketplace. It's selling very well. It's a Heartland bestseller as well as a New York Times bestseller. You all know Dan Brown, I'm sure, for the Da Vinci Code and other thrillers. This is his debut. What you may not know about Dan Brown is that he is a classical music aficionado. He has been composing music for orchestras. He's a gifted pianist. So he wanted to write a picture book that would incorporate his love of music. This is a very funny at times musical, but it's really kind of a celebration of the animal world and finding music and mindfulness in the world. There's also a really cool feature of this book. Kids can download an app and focus their camera on a page, and then they can stream music as they read through the book. Just a nice added feature to this book.
Hey.
Find Fergus by Mike Bull.
Running around doing stuff I need to do, and I wondered if it's convenient for me to stop by your house and get you to sign a piece of paper for me.
And everybody make sure their mic is muted.
If that's all it is, I probably can't have a chat, but I can step away from a call and sign something. Sure.
I think that's David. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so Find Fergus. This is for fans of Where's Waldo, by the best-selling author of I Don't Want to Be a Frog. It's a funny, interactive story about Fergus the bear who loves to play hide and seek with the reader, but can't really get the hang of it. So as you read through the story, there you end up with this beautiful gatefold that has Fergus among hundreds of different characters, and you got to kind of find where Fergus is. But it's a really fun book for parents and kids to read. Margaret's Unicorn. Brianne May Smith is a rising star in the picture book illustrated world. She's a Brit, and this is a book about a young girl's wish that comes true. She finds and takes care of a baby unicorn. Really beautiful artwork throughout, and I think we're going to see more books from her. We have got 2 Grumpy Monkey books. You probably know this series by now. This is the 3rd book in the series. Next year, we're going to have more picture books as well as Step Into Reading, and we're going to have a book and toy set. So this is becoming really a franchise author or series for us. We're all a little bit grumpy. I'm a little bit grumpy right now, but I think it's good. This is a great book to kind of vent your feelings, and grumpiness can actually be a very positive trait. Oscar's American Dream. This is a timely classic 20th century immigration story that kind of the history of the 20th century kind of unfolds in each page. The author Barry Wittenstein and the illustrators, they tell a rich, fascinating story of key moments in American history. It's reflected through their eyes, and it really is centered on this corner store where this family takes over, and it's just you kind of follow their life. So it covers the women's suffrage movement, World War II, and the Civil Rights Movement, among other key moments in the history. Max Meow, we've got a bunch of really great graphic novels. Max Meow, this is the first in a series, very funny, action-packed story about a kitty superhero with attitude. I mean, you can call it catitude, but we were really taken with it, and we have placed this in the Heartland holiday catalog. We're going to be doing 2 books by this author, who's very well connected in the comics world, but I think he's going to become a big star in the graphic novel world as well. Witches of Brooklyn. This is already a top 10 fall kids Indie Next pick. We've gotten so much commentary on this book from booksellers. If you go into Edelweiss, you'll see all the much loves. This is for fans of Phoebe and her unicorn, making friends. Obviously the story takes place in Brooklyn, and the story takes a strange turn when the title character Effie discovers that magic runs in the family. So we're going to be doing at least 3 books in this series. Now I'm getting into middle grade. When Life Gives You Mangoes. This is also a debut. This author, our field team chose this as our rep pick. We were taken with the lyrical writing, the lush setting of Jamaica, and the characters in the story. This story is based on the author's own childhood experiences. I would say a good comp title would be The Thing About Jellyfish. And it's a story about a young girl who can't remember anything from her previous summer after a hurricane. And there's just, the story just works on a lot of different levels, but a very memorable lead character. Stacey McAnulty, Millionaires for the Month. You all have done very well with her previous book, Miscalculations of Lightning Girl. This book is equally as good as that book. Stacey McAnulty likes to incorporate STEM themes, math, numbers into her story. And this is a story about two boys who are on a field trip. They find a wallet. It turns out this wallet belongs to a tech billionaire. One of the kids takes a $20 bill from the wallet, thinking that what's $20 to a billionaire? It's like a penny. So when they return the wallet to the person decides to challenge them on the real meaning of and value of money. 1 penny doubled over 30 days equals over $5 million. So can they spend $5 million in 30 days? So that's the challenge for these kids, and they go on this wild adventure. And just a really great read. The Magic Fish, another
Tim,
graphic
you have 1 minute
novel.
left.
This is more for the YA market. It kind of deals with both LGBTQ and classic immigrant story. The author, Trung Le Nguyen, is based in Minneapolis, so we definitely have the regional appeal. Another book that's gotten incredible advanced reads from our booksellers. It's a story about a young Vietnamese immigrant boy who tries to navigate life through fairy tales and how we're all connected. So the character, he loves his family and his friends, but he has a secret that he's been keeping from them, and that's how this kind of coming of age and revealing who he really is comes through. Dear Justice, now we're getting into some of our key YA titles. This is the sort of riveting sequel to Dear Martin. You all have done very well with this. The character Justice was the lead character in Dear Martin. This is a story about Justice and his friend from his neighborhood who is in prison. Justice is a gifted student from Atlanta who ended up at Yale, and his friend is incarcerated for capital crime. And so the story is really about their relationship and how they ended up where they are, and their correspondence throughout the book. It's just a very powerful read, and it'll just add to Nick Stone's readership. And very, very timely book, of course, that come out now. And this is also going to be a Heartland holiday catalog title.
Tim, you are right at
Finally,
time.
Karen McManus, The Cousins, you know her from One of Us is Lying and One of Us is Next. This is coming out in December, so this will really kind of carry over into 21. Another book that kind of reminds me of We Were Liars, great characters, just edge of your seat writing. Finally, sorry, I meant to scroll down. I did add our I did add also a couple of our National Book Award long list titles. How We Got to the Moon by John Rocco. Rocco is best known for being the illustrator of the Percy Jackson series. Just an incredible story about the space race, very freshly told. And also The Way Back by Gabriel Savet. You all did very well with his debut novel, Anna and the Swallow Man. He's an Ann Arbor native, by the way. And this is a story that kind of incorporates Jewish folklore into this historical literary fantasy. I love this book, and I was so happy to see this on the list. I apologize so much for the technical difficulty. This is my Zoom debut. I'm used to another online format, so.
No worries, Tim.
Thank you very much. Miss seeing you all.
Thank you, Tim. It's great. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'd like to thank our reps, John Hastie, Jill Nadeau, Stefan Moorehead, Tim Mooney, and Jason Gobble. This event has been recorded. It'll probably be available online later today, but it'll definitely be made available this Friday to everybody. That being said, thank you all. Bye.